Awesome. Well, welcome, Emily, to our Wisdom Through the Journey interview series. We're so glad to have you with us here today. For those of you that don't know Emily Sarmiento, I'm so happy that we get to have the opportunity to share just a little bit more about your life, Emily. You've been such a mentor and inspiration to me. So I'm very excited to have others get to hear bits and pieces of your story and the wisdom that you have to share with us today. Before I turn it over to you, I would love just to read a little bit of a bio that you have, Emily, so others that maybe don't know you have a little bit more context as we dive into today's conversation. Sure. Awesome. And so Emily found vocation at the crossroads of faith and social action with Latin immigrants to the USA. As a founding member of a Spanish-speaking church and outreach ministry, Emily became passionate about holistic mission and solutions to root causes of poverty and injustice. After teaching public school for 2 years, Emily joined Heifer International to lead operations in Latin America. She then served with Enactus, advancing global youth leadership development through economic entrepreneurship. And Emily then moved into the faith-based NGO when she joined Convoy of Hope, the relief and development partner of the Assemblies of God, to manage international operations and launch USAID programming. Convoy then led Emily to Compassion International, side note, where we met in global leadership roles over church-based child development programming and later impact strategy redesign. While at Compassion, Emily served on the board of the Accord Network Trade Association for the Christian Relief and Development. Mid-2020, Emily was recruited to become president and CEO of Tearfund USA to further extend Tearfund's global invitation to join the local church in overcoming poverty and injustice. And Emily holds a bachelor's in international management in Spanish, as well as a certificate in education from Missouri State, as well as a master's in organizational leadership for international development through Eastern University. Last, definitely not least, and definitely most important, Emily lives with her husband, Diego, and her 2 beautiful children outside of Denver in rural Colorado. So Emily, so happy to have you with us today. Thank you for making the time for this conversation.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm a fan of yours, and anytime I can spend time chatting with you is good. So thank you so much for setting this up.
No, it's my pleasure. So Emily, I do have a couple of questions that we'll walk through together today, but if you have something where you feel the Holy Spirit's leading you in a different direction, feel free to just take the conversation there.
I'll do.
So Emily, I would love to know, starting off, what are some of your core values and how do you see those values being lived out day to day in the work that you get to do?
Yeah, no, that's great. Core values for me are very, very personal, just kind of the rudders that guide me. And so authenticity is one. The older I get, the less time I have for inauthentic relationships or inauthentic dynamics of any way. And so certainly that shows up in my work and how I try to lead or how I try to engage partners. I have a strong commitment to integrity. I don't pretend that I've always been perfect in that regard, but I think the Spirit has given me a strong internal check. Like, can I say or do this? Is it aligning to, are my words and action aligning? And am I leading in a way that our organization is aligning practice to words and what we preach? And I think another core value is we are more than one thing. It's a life philosophy I have, and it's a value. It's a value. We are more than one thing. And, even about the Alliance and my commitment to leaning into helping to build this space, it's that, because I want women to fully understand and believe that we were made to be more than one thing, and there's a way to support each other in the journey of doing that. So that for me is a core value, and I try to really share that with my team and guide our relationships and conversations that way. And it's okay for people to come and bring their whole selves to work, even if that's a challenge that they're living at home. We're more than one thing, and life is integrated. So that's a key value.
That is so beautiful. Excuse me for anyone watching the recording. I'm sick, so if I experience coffee, I apologize. Emily, I'm so inspired to hear you share that. I hear keywords like integration. I hear themes of creating psychological safety for your team.
Yes.
I actually also share a value of authenticity. And so I see that in the way that you show up on a daily basis and can very much attest to that. So thank you for sharing how some of your values really are guiding the way in which you live in, day out.
Yeah.
Your faith along with the people that you get to serve that God's put in front of you.
Yeah.
Emily, I would love to know, I'm curious to know the
Yeah,
answer to this. What makes you feel most inspired or like your best self?
yeah. Um, I think Sarah, like most inspired in my work. I will say in my work first, and then I'll say like personally. In my work is leaning in with a team who's absolutely committed and focused in the same direction. I'm thinking I just came off my last couple of business days. We had a board meeting and brilliant brand new board team, a couple of our key leader staff there, and the synergy when everybody's just excited and leaning in, to a common mission, common goal, and when we know it's impactful because it's sacred kingdom work, I come alive, and I feel like in that kind of a relational and safe and aligned and committed dynamic, like I'm free to be me. I'm free who God made me to be, which is a leader for kingdom impact. And so I come alive there. So on a personal side, I come alive, when I'm with my kids. And I shared this recently, even with the board conversation. What brings me most joy and what really brings me out is when I can let down the CEO, role. I can take that off and be goofy with my family, just be me, be us, celebrate my kids. They're 7 and 5, celebrate their energy and their excitement and what they're into, and just be silly as a family, that's wholeness of life for me, those moments. And we have some very, very dear friends that we walk through life with, and they are like our family. They live 5 minutes away, and we get together near every weekend. And so they're part of that circle. And just to be together and sharing life and celebrating all the kids together, that makes me come alive for sure.
I love that. And I think the reality of that so much too is like your kids aren't like, mommy's a CEO. It's like, mommy is mommy and she's here and she's showing up and we love her. And so you are fully accepted as a mom and you get to wear the role of CEO, which comes with a lot of responsibility. And I'm so glad that you're surrounded by people that make you feel like you can be fully, truly you in all
Yeah.
spaces that you're living.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's the biggest privilege and blessing. And it's fun even to disciple my kids in the fact that you can lead
Mm.
and you can have this family dynamic. Recently talking with the kids over a meal, they said something about how they both wanted to be a CEO. And I'm like,
I
what?
love that.
And it's just fun for them to have a picture of something they could do. The other day I was driving errands with my 5-year-old daughter and just asked her, like, what does mommy do? What is it that you think that and certainly in very different jargon, but she knows it's about helping people and it's about serving God. And
Mm.
I love the fact that I can model that, vocationally and then just as mom too.
Yeah, that's so beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that she's like thinking about, I want to be
No,
one day. I can do all of these things. And
no, I
I
love it.
know that the heart of what you do on a daily basis, even though she obviously does not know all the details, all
Yeah,
the
yeah,
that are involved in that,
yeah,
but the heart behind serving Christ and serving people.
absolutely.
We love
Yeah,
that.
yep, yeah, it's special.
I love that. Emily, I'm curious to know from you, besides prayer, meditation, exercise, all the things that we know we should be doing on a daily
Yep.
basis, what is one thing that you maybe do every single morning before work to really prepare yourself for the day ahead?
Yeah, no, I would say a couple of things, Sarah. One is just the routine with the family. I mean, and that's part of preparing for the day too. The kids tend to run into our room and throw themselves in our bed in the morning. And so just starting the day that way together as a family. If it's a school morning, getting them ready, getting them out of the house, and we always pray together as a family. We always just pray over the day together. That's sacred. Nobody can leave the house until we do that. So that's certainly part of the key routine. But then preparing myself for work, there are a couple key prayers I pray over my day. And that's beyond just the regular devotional. It's before I step into a meeting. I pray, I don't know why it ever started, but I pray Samson's prayer when his final act with the Philistines. If you go back to the Old Testament, before he pushed the temple pillars down, he prayed, Sovereign Lord, remember your servant, strengthen me once more. And that's just something I pray over my day. I don't know why or where I ever came up with that, but
Mm.
for me, it's just a centering moment of I can't step into any conversation or any team leadership moment or any activity without recognizing it's your strength, strength that I need, Lord, strengthen me, you know, and then I can do even hard tasks if it's coming from your strength. So that's one key. And then another one I would say, Sarah, is similarly, God gave me this vision a while ago, and I've described it at random times for people, and I've demonstrated it for teams. But those clear plastic cafeteria gloves where you can fully see through them, you know, food service gloves, that's all we are. And it's the Holy Spirit's hand that should be seen moving. And sometimes, especially if I know I'm in a funk or coming, you know, out of other, whether it's home stuff or other things, I just need to, I need to clear my mind and really get in that place for God to use me. I'll sit there and just imagine that glove and think of all the things I have to pull out of it so that I can be fully free to move. And the only thing that's seen is God in it. So that's just one of those little centering, you know, get myself in the space for the day routines that I have.
I love that. Prayer and reminding yourself that God is the one that's moving. Now I'm like picturing myself like I need to have a plastic glove
Yes.
on my desk to remind me on a daily basis, like I am the Lord's vessel. Like I need
Exactly.
such a good reminder for how easy it can be to be caught up in I have this to do today, I have this is my responsibility. And that burden and that weight can really be on one's shoulders. And so it sounds like you on a daily basis are practicing.
I try
Today. We're striving. No one is perfect, not saying perfect in doing it on a daily basis, but having those intentional rhythms established and doing that with your family, not just alone, but really turning the day over to the Lord is
it's key.
And
it's
inspiring.
Absolutely key.
So thank you so much for sharing that.
For sure.
So Emily, this series is all about wisdom for the journey. So you are a couple of experiences ahead of me in your career journey, and I'm really excited to hear some of the pieces of wisdom that you have to share from your experiences. And so we'll kind of move more into that space where I would love to know what is one of the most important lessons that you have learned over your career? And feel free to take that wherever you would like.
Yeah. So many. Like, how long do we have? Is what I would say.
All the time in the world.
No, I mean, some of it certainly goes back to even those prayers. And I think that's probably, you know, the original genesis of where some of those practices came for me. We're unwinding the bad beliefs about this is about me or this is about, you know, I'll tell you this, a story at Compassion. There was one point in time where I was invited into an executive conversation, and I felt like it really underperformed, and I won't go through nitty gritty details or anything, but I walked out with this sense of berating myself. I underperformed according to my expectations. And I sat in that disappointment with myself for a couple days until I really felt the Holy Spirit saying, like, what are you doing? What is this about? You know, is this about you? And so I think one thing looking back across my career and where I've learned is where I've allowed it to become my story and all about me. And just things don't work. Things don't work. You know, emotions for yourself don't work. You're not effective. It can spill over into team relationships or family relationships. So certainly being on guard. I've learned to be on guard for what my motives are in different things, and also have people around me who can, you know, help me identify what's really going on, whether that's a super close friend that we do life with or exec coach, and just talking through pre-game or post-game scenarios with her about how stuff played out and, you know, what do I need to discern from that. So yeah, just not getting out of my own way, not making it about me, you know, making sure the Spirit can show up and have freedom of movement, and staying attuned so that I'm really intentionally trying to do what He wants, not what I'm imagining for myself.
No, that's so good. And
yeah,
that makes me think of a comparison that I heard a couple of years ago about the importance of being able to reflect and take key feedback from a moment, have a learning opportunity, but not necessarily to stay in that place of rumination where we tell the story and we start to spiral, and then it becomes ingrained with our identity and failure rather than us showing up maybe not the best way that we wanted to on a particular day. As humans, we're all imperfect beings. And so absolutely really speaks to me as someone that I will say struggles with perfectionism. And so I'm encouraged to hear you say that you reach out to the people around you that help kind of right size that feedback and that perspective and the emotion that we can attach to those moments where maybe we didn't show up the way that we wanted to in a particular moment.
I found too, Sarah, like the emotions, you can get on that repeat loop when it's positive feedback too, and I think that can, I mean, it's all about self either way, whether you're berating yourself and disappointed for lack of performance, or you're inflating your own ego, replaying positive feedback or positive experience, either dangerous, and it take you, I mean, you're making yourself an idol in it. And I've certainly been in both places. And it's a practice I want to intentionally stay away from. So having truth tellers in my life is
Mhm.
so key, whether, again, team, friend, coach, whoever, but who can help kind of call me out of, and I have a new board chair, and part of our intake process of how we're going to work together, I told him the keys to Emily, here are things I know about myself, here are things to watch out for. And we talked specifically about that and how can he help call me out of
Mhm.
my own head on stuff, no matter what the direction is. If I'm too internally focused on something, you need partnerships to help navigate any walk. So I'm grateful to have those.
Yeah, and I'm sure you were that for many people as well. So being
Hopefully.
grateful for that as well.
Thank you, Sarah.
For this question, you can pretend like you're answering it for me since I fit in
Okay.
this category. But if you were to put yourself back in your early 20s, mid 20s, early career, and you are starting off your career journey, what is some wisdom and guidance that you would give to your 20-something self as you're starting off your career?
Yeah. I think multiple things, and certainly this theme of, not over centering self in it, not over striving, dependence on God. I mean, I hope that's come through loud and clear already. Overwork, especially those of us who are driven and like to achieve, it's so, so, so important. And I think there's generational differences where we have tendencies sometimes in different directions. I was raised by an overworking father and a stay-at-home mom, and I tend to
Mhm.
idolize his example and didn't know how to interpret her example. And so I've leaned into this hard work ethic that was modeled for me at times in unhealthy ways. And again, it's another form of centering self. So certainly would encourage younger people, put in the right boundaries, and again, have those grounding relationships and practices early. For those two who really want to grow in leadership and influence, early, and this was at Compassion, my very first role at Compassion, I saw so many things I wanted to lean into and influence. And there was an HR professional on the team who said, Emily, bloom where you're planted. Just like wait, God's got it, bloom where you're planted. And that may sound cliche. And I know the anxiety sometimes as a younger person trying to live into that, but it's biblical. It's parable of the talents. It's being faithful where he's put us. It's worshiping him through work, no matter the role, and so I really try to encourage people that you never know, things change so quickly in life, or opportunities, doors, just be faithful where you are, fully shine, fully absorb that before you reach for more. Show that you are faithful in that. So I think that's another key lesson. Another one, Sarah, I would say, a little bit of this, I think I've shared over time, but my own personal testimony, and I alluded to it there a second ago with my parents, the wisdom that you can be more than one thing. I thought you either could work or you could be a stay-at-home mom. And I
Mhm.
struggled with that for so long. And that's just part of my story that I freely share because I don't know how emotional or deep it sounds for people, but for me, it was a struggle. I mean, it was 13 and a half
Yeah.
years of marriage and struggling. Can I lead and can I be a mom? And praise God for a very patient husband who was committed to making sure we waited until I was ready. But
Mhm.
I really debated, can I lead and have this fulfillment in this deep calling that I feel, and can I be a mom, and can I do more than one thing? And praise God, I found out you can. And God writes all of our stories differently, and
Mhm.
leadings on different hearts. And the most important thing is listening to him and leaning into that. But where women have a deep desire and a call in their heart to do more than one thing, he makes a way. You don't have to
Yeah.
choose. So I think that's a key piece of wisdom I struggled to learn.
Yeah. That so much of what you just shared really resonates with me about being one thing. And also, I think one key factor is the fact that you have a husband that is so supportive and empowering in a way that shows up for you to be able to live into your leadership skills and ability and be able to show up as the wonderful mom that you are on a daily basis. I think so many people in my current life stage, which mid 20s, early career,
Yeah. Yep.
thinking through how do I really climb the ladder? How do I continue to grow into the next position? Do I need to stay at this organization? Do I need to move elsewhere? While at the same time, where is there going to be an organization that supports me as I then transition into motherhood? Because I think that so many, especially Christian women, value and into the importance of motherhood. And I'll just share that I'm a stepmom, so I have a different version of motherhood that comes into that. And I think even in that space in itself, we hold so many high and unrealistic expectations about we have to be perfect in all of these areas. The reality is that the Lord is shaping us on a daily basis with the roles that we hold with our humbling us on a daily basis, but also encouraging, empowering us to really be better leaders in the work that we get to do. And I think that that is just something that's so beautiful, and want to just take a moment to recognize that and celebrate.
Well, I would just say too, absolutely. And I would just say to younger women, especially who know they want a career and haven't yet found a life partner, it's certainly something to vet and talk about and really make sure that you've explored. Do you have the right support in that partner? You know, do you have the right long-term vision? You know, in best of cases, I would brag on my hubby and say he saw more in me than I saw in me early. You know, when we were dating, he believed in God's plans for me far more than I did at that point in time. And I mean, God has used him in my story, in my journey, just to point out the next things too. And you know, that's sheer grace. That's no smarts on my part. That's sheer grace, you know, for God to have just led us together, and that to have been how it played out. But man, I would encourage, you know, single women, really consider and really vet, you know, what's on your heart, and also be open for what's on your heart to change. You know, like I, at one point in our marriage, really thought I only wanted a career. I only wanted to lead. And I, you know, and some of that was my own unprocessed things from my past, but I just thought, like, I thrive and I love this, and this is who I was made to be. And I could have chosen away from children and missed that blessing. You know, I think it's great to be driven, and it's great to have aspirations and want to live fully into that calling. Hold it loosely and don't idolize the calling. You know, hold it loose enough that God could change your heart and open the door to something unexpected. You know, and in my case, when that happened with kids, it was through a spiritual formation journey as a part of my master's at Eastern. And it was through surrender there. I realized I had never surrendered to God the chance that I could be a mom. Like I had predetermined for God, I was only going to have a career here. God, you're going to use me in this way. You know, that's all you get. And I realized it was truly a surrender issue. And then when I surrendered, you know, shortly thereafter, here we have one child and we have two, and it's been the biggest blessing of my life. And I'm just grateful. I'm grateful. The Holy Spirit worked on my heart, you know, and I knew him well enough to listen and let him change me. And I didn't miss that blessing.
You took the time to listen and surrender, which I think so often in American culture, at the very least, you make the plan, you follow, you execute. There's room for pivoting or the Lord to move, and no, that's not the way to. So thank you for sharing.
Absolutely.
Hearing that.
Yep.
Emily, I know people have varying perspectives when it comes to, do you have regrets? No, it got me to this point here today, or I really messed this up and I've learned from that. And so for this question, I would love to know if you could do just one thing over in your leadership career. Maybe you have many, maybe you have none. But if you could change just one thing in your leadership career, what would you do differently?
I think there are kind of two tracks that come to mind. The theme is staying out of some stuff. There have been moments in multiple environments I've been in where there were behaviors that once I was out of them, I wasn't proud of the behaviors I participated in. And I think that goes back to having your values so clear, your moral grounding, your anchors so clear, and support systems around you that you can identify when you're drawn into things that don't align with the authentic person that you want to be, you know, and then whether it's micro situations or conversations and choosing your way out of that, or if it's entire systems or organizations that you choose your way out of. I think just having the mechanisms, the intelligence mechanisms to monitor when you're getting off what you truly believe in. And those are the types of, I think, themes where because I don't know all the quotes right now. It's the end of a very long day, but when you stay in something, you condone it. Your presence condones
Mhm.
something at times. And so just understanding, um, how you're condoning or how you're actively fighting against things, but just really understanding how environments are affecting and causing you to operate either with or against your values.
Mhm.
I think that's a key thing. When I look back, there are moments across, again, multiple organizations, multiple experiences, where in hindsight, I wish I had chosen differently and had the help to choose differently in specific moments. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I'm curious if you were, for example, to be in an environment that you felt like was against your values, how do you gracefully and respectfully exit that situation? What would you do differently today?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I have a brilliant board member who she and I had this conversation once. She has stayed in a very, very, very tricky situation on purpose because
Mhm.
in this case, she really recognizes you can't change a system from the outside. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. But I think, there's God doesn't send us into perfect scenarios to be comfortable, right? I mean, we are to be agents of change and influencers and disciples in complicated situations. And so I think staying centered in that calling of the role that aligns to the values of what you believe, doing as much as you can to operate in that direction and influence in that direction, but
Mhm.
just knowing boundaries that you're not comfortable crossing, and then being willing. We had a with Tearfund, we had a pastor retreat recently, and a brilliant talk from a pastor. Quick commercial break. He's going to be a keynote speaker at the Justice Conference in October. So,
Can't wait
um,
for that.
I won't say the name because it's not public yet, but he's amazing. And he gave us this kind of concierge personal talk for the audience, but
Mhm.
talking about sometimes you have to lose to win. And it was so
Mhm.
powerful. Sometimes you just have to choose the sacrifice, choose to extract yourself because the situation can't be influenced or aligned, or time's up and you need to take those limited time moments and energy elsewhere to influence. So discerning, when have I done enough? Holy Spirit, do I have the freedom to choose on and go on, when to leave the
Mhm.
situation. So I don't know if I answered what you asked, Sarah.
Yeah, no,
um,
you did. I'm curious, have you ever explored having like a form of an accountability partner in hard, difficult spaces? And was that something that was really valuable for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Having people you walk through tough stuff with, for sure. And, wise counsel as you do try to
Mhm.
address things or raise issues or, try to promote change. None of us can ever, I mean, we can't navigate anything as islands. I talk about that with a team. You may be the best individual contributor in your category and you may love what you do. You can always use a second set of eyes. And Jesus sent disciples out in twos for a reason, right?
Mhm.
Biblical.
Yeah.
So no matter what the situation, what the challenge, having a partner inside, outside, somewhere who's walking through the situation with you is so key. And,
Mhm.
making sure too, I think sometimes it's tricky if you have people in the same environments experiencing the same challenges.
Mhm.
Do they become vent groups instead of accountability partners for
Yeah.
change, or accountability partners for your values? So I think you have to watch that.
Mhm.
But absolutely making sure you have a mentor or a friend, a family member, someone who's praying you through and checking in on you in terms of how you're operating in tough situations.
Yeah. We cannot do this alone. We are not meant to do life alone, especially difficult moments.
No,
God created us to be in community, to
absolutely.
lift one another up, pray over
Absolutely.
difficulties, and to walk with each other
Yeah.
in those
Yep.
moments.
Yep. Yeah, for sure.
Um, Emily, pivoting just slightly here, I would love to hear your thoughts on what is one thing that you would like to see either your own or other NGOs do to really
Mm.
intentionally help develop female leaders.
Yeah. Opportunities. I mean, just I have one gal on the team who's asked for multiple opportunities, and because she's excelled in everyone prior, I've always said yes. So and demonstrating that for other people so they have self-belief, whether it's women, men, whoever on the team, they have an opportunity to grow. So I think whether it's I pull in lower level staff members to board meetings, for exposure and just opportunity to see how that works, or shadow on a call or some engagement of some sort. sometimes you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know what's out there. So creating, I think to my compassion child and youth development days, and exposure was such a key theme for young people in context of poverty, just to believe there was more out there. The principle's true for us here, and growing within organizations. So I think just modeling opportunities, I think that's a key thing. And then just being super intentional on the culture, side, and what's tolerable and acceptable behavior and what's not. I have a couple other CEO, I'm part of a CEO triad, just three CEOs walking together and just sharing tips and things. And recently one came forward sharing the challenges within their new organization, and just the impacts on staff. And we had a conversation about sometimes you just have to take culture by the reins, and it's a constant forever thing. But to set the tone, to really make sure that the conditions are right so that people can grow and thrive. You can have opportunities, and a toxic culture can stifle them. You can have a great culture, but if you're not creating those opportunities or exposure windows, might not get far. So I think and there's others, but multiple things like that have to be held in tension and actively, cultivated.
Yeah, that's so true. Thinking about the piece that you spoke to with regard to opportunities and exposure, I remember when in that program role at Compassion, you invited one of the, I think it was like program cycle, something.
Yes. Yeah.
And I was in a world of HR. So my one Compassion was so limited, and sitting in those meetings for 3 days, I just felt like, oh my gosh, I was exposed to so much that I didn't even existed in a way that made me feel even more passionate about the mission of that organization. And I think through how easy was it for you to just
come sit in the room with us.
Come sit. It's not this big gesture that we need to do, but what are the little things that we can do? Say, hey, I think so-and-so would be interested in this and really learn and grow from this. Maybe let's debrief for 15 minutes after. Where people get the opportunity to be exposed to what's outside of their particular circle or scope of work in a way that we're developing people really intentionally. And I thank you for doing that for me. And I'm sure many people have done that for you over the past several years as well. And
absolutely.
I'm curious, is there one moment that comes to your mind where someone really intentionally said, Emily, follow me, I want you to shadow so you can learn this experience, or anything along those lines?
Yeah, for sure. I think of critical male allies to my development journey. One called me and he said, hey, I'm handing over my board seat. Would you be interested in taking my board seat? And the fact that he vetted with the people that needed to be, that he reached out and said, hey, as a part of seeing potential in you, I want to open this door for you. I look at moments like that. Those are few and far between when fast moving higher level leaders, no matter the gender, for them just to think about how can I really help someone on their journey and really create an opportunity, especially if they're not in your direct line. That's a lot of intentionality is what I'm trying to say. And just because he created that super significant opportunity for me that helped me network, helped me grow, understand governance, helped me be a part of, our trade association governing it. And so I think of micro moments like that might not have been so significant for him, but really helped shape journey for me. Even back in the day, Sarah, when I joined Compassion, I joined in a role leading all the technical thematic experts. There was a reorg in my first 9 months, and I was asked, did I want to take leadership of the child development through sponsorship program? And at the time, I knew that was a significant move. In hindsight, I realized all the value of that. In terms of, there were men who reorged and said, hey, we think there's some potential here. Would you want to take on this challenge? And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for those open opportunities. I'll say too, kind of going back to one of the practices I love to know the stories of my team and try to cue opportunities towards their interest areas. So that's something I always try to encourage other leaders too, or newer people managers, is really understand where your people want to get over time and then, hold yourself accountable for intentionality. So I have someone on my team who eventually wants to be an executive director of a smaller nonprofit. Knowing that, we'll live these experiences, and then I'll come offline with this person and have kind of these teaching moments and say, like, as an executive director, you would, and I've asked for permission to do that because I never want to be
Yeah.
paternalistic or anything like that. But yeah, I've said, if this is helpful, I want to help you connect the dots on some of these leadership things.
Yeah.
But it's because I knew the story. I know the story.
Mm.
They want to go. I can be intentional. So
Yeah. And that's a trait of good leadership, is being good stewards of the talents that God has given you, shepherding over. Like, you need to know the people that
yeah,
you're surrounded yourself with, because it's really part of your responsibility to help shepherd and grow them.
yeah,
And so knowing the people that you get to work with is critical.
absolutely.
I would say, and being a good leader. I've noticed that in bosses that I've had, where people either know me deeply and advocate for me because
Yeah.
I feel so deeply known and seen. And then there's
Yep.
others where this is the job description and this is the work that you need to do. And are you going to get it done by the deadline? And there's a
Yeah.
world of difference there
Yeah.
when it comes to leadership.
Yeah. Well, and on that leadership theme, I would say, one thing I've been reflecting on a lot, you know, leaders should never enter a role and assume they just camp there. Just like assume that you just come in and you're there, and yeah, you got, begin with the end in mind. And I've been pushing my team on this, no matter the role, whether you're the first chair or, wherever in the org, think about beginning with the end in mind, because any assignment is finite. And the combination of people too, Sarah, I've come to appreciate so much when you have dream team dynamics and when you don't. You notice the difference. So when you have it, recognize that composition of people are only going to be together for a finite period of time. And then the leader's role, should be a infinitely finite period of time. So you don't get into bad behaviors and culture because of overstaying your welcome. So begin with the end in mind, and think about how do you maximize the combination of skills and talents in any given team.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. The term leave a legacy just comes.
Yeah.
You step in, you're stewarding a role, and then you're leaving a legacy for the next person to follow you.
Yeah.
Not.
I'll confess my really cheesy visual.
I love it. We want to hear it.
My super cheesy mental picture for how I think about it. Go watch this. You can Google the YouTube clip, the last 2 minutes of Ocean's 11. Everybody's at the Bellagio fountain after their big heist. The thing of that is they come in with all these different skill sets and diverse persons, and they execute on this big, huge mission together. They achieve the goal, and then they're out there looking at the fountain, and they smile, and one by one walk away. And I hold that mental picture and think, like, for my board, for my team, for me, at the end of the run, what would I want the smile to be about? Because the team skill set came together on the impossible challenge and achieved something. What would make God smile as I walk away? What would make me smile? What would make team individuals smile as we walk away and go to our next assignment? Because it's always a infinite, a finite, it's always a temporary period, that we're assigned. So.
Yeah. Well, I will never watch that scene the same again after hearing. I love the mental imagery that you brought to mind with that.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, Emily, I feel like we could sit here all day talking
about
all of the varied experiences that you have. And thank you so much for being so courageous and vulnerable and sharing with us.
Absolutely.
And wisdom along the journey that you've lived with the Lord. But I do have a couple of fun wrap-up questions for us, closing questions. Some fun, so we're just a little bit more deep. And so this is kind of one of those spitfire, as quick as this comes to mind. So as you hear this question, think of your response, and then I'll ask you for it.
Okay.
So Emily, you feel called to do something courageous, but you hear the lies in your head that you're not blank enough. What do you do in that moment to combat the lies?
Yeah, I'll go back to scripture and tell myself who I know to be, and those he calls, he equips. I believe, and one thing I can look back with, I don't want to say pride, but peace, is I believe all the roles I've been in, I was called to be in them, and those he calls, he equips. So whenever I hear those lies, I just remember that, I was put here for a reason. So God, what's the reason? And again, back to my anchor prayers, sovereign Lord, remember your servant. It's got to be you, and I got to get out of your way for movement and for you showing up to be glorified. So, yeah, go back to those truths.
It's so important. Emily, this takes a little bit, I would say, of self-awareness, other awareness. But for this question, I would love to know, what is something that people seem to potentially misunderstand about you?
I think two things come to mind. One is passion. And I've learned, especially in this role, we just had this board meeting the other day, and I get so passionate. And my husband's Latino, and we have this Latin bicultural household, and Latins talk over each other. And so between passion and that cultural side, I can chime in, or I can chime in with a lot of strength too, and just helping people. In the board meeting the other day, my chair was like, let her finish, in very friendly way. And, he knew it was pure passion. My passion will spill over. I think people don't always know how to read that. So for people who don't know me well, sometimes it's helpful to say, let me interpret for you what's going on here. I'm just really excited about what we're talking, so the passion, I think too, Sarah, part of my calling in leadership is pushing through really tough stuff. That's just, that's part of who God's wired me to be. And every story, if we unpack the CV, every story had some kind of weird, crazy heavy lift or digging out of something. And I think sometimes leaning into that and just the conviction, the only way out is through. Sometimes people don't understand. I'm really trying to get the overall situation to a much better place. And so I'm calling out the dysfunction. I'm not like trying to, I'm not trying to create drama for the sake of drama. I'm trying to name the things that need to be named so we can move on, and especially if anyone finds that threatening, or who stole my cheese, it kind of changes their situation. I think that can be misinterpreted. So I've certainly learned through that, and how I need to, sometimes I narrate my logic, my line of logic here, and what I'm trying to do is this, just to disclose motives, or I'll specifically say, here are my three drivers. Here's why I'm raising this, and just really put it out there so people know how to interpret.
Yeah. And I love that, bringing clarity to a situation and being really clear up front about, here are my drivers, here are my motivations, so that people aren't telling themselves a story that's incorrect.
Yes. Yeah.
In their head, and then that makes people be defensive and respond maybe not in a way that's more open, in a way that really can get to where you're all wanting to get to.
Yeah.
I think knowing that about yourself and being able to say, I need to be articulate about, these are the intentions that I hold, and here's why, and bring people on board for the direction that you're trying to go.
Well, and especially in cross-cultural and Zoom-based environments. The past 2 years, we've been on Zoom so much, and I came into a role in that environment, meeting people around the globe. So you had, the one-dimensional, only technological connection, and then culturally, and yet a lot of stuff that had to advance. So I think sometimes you just have to choose the tactic for the situation, but be super clear about conveying motives, drive, how people your tones, or your tone, or your body language. Just narrating that for people, and trying to show that authentic heart. Here's who I am in this, and that's why you're interpreting it or experiencing it that way. And certainly reading their needs and their interpretation of things.
That's critical. Emily, I have just one last question for you for our time together today.
Sure.
If you remembered for one thing, what would you choose?
Man,
I know it's not an easy to end on.
Well, and remember by whom, for one thing. Yeah, I mean, maybe by the people I work with. Like, I want them to know that they were loved. I love my people hard, and I'll tell them that. I'll tell them that as part of even just narrating things. Sometimes my heart fills up and comes out my eyes, and I love my people. And I hope that. And part of love is even like the tough love and calling people out of stuff and calling them to be better. But I hope even that is interpreted as love, because I love you, Sarah, and because I see the potential in you, I'm gonna influence you in this direction, So certainly for my people, I would hope that. I think overall, just in stewarding career, progress and impact, kingdom impact, I never would want to be remembered as a button pusher or maintainer. Like, I know that part of my call and wiring is to, again, break through and build stuff for the kingdom. And so I would hope that I steward that well and am faithful to that. And certainly by my family. I mean, love
Mhm.
again, and being present. Even, one thing, the struggle of being more than one thing, I've learned you can be excellent in career. You have to work extra hard to feel present for your family sometimes, and
Mhm.
I would never want to have my family look back and feel like I wasn't present, whether
Mhm.
that's time or quality of time when I am
Yeah.
off the clock with them.
Yeah, that's so good.
Yeah.
Emily, anything else that you want to share with our audience today before I wrap us up?
No, I mean, just enjoy the journey. I mean, enjoy the journey and ask tons of questions and lean into opportunities to get to know, just like you do, Sarah. I mean, that's where if I could just kind of speak back into you as we close the session. You stood out to me the very first time we met at Compassion, that HR meeting, and you asked about
Mhm.
the theory of change, and so the curiosity to take all you can from everyone, goes back to that, the unique dynamics when people groups are together, when teams are together. It's not forever, so take advantage every time you have the opportunity to rub shoulders or learn, and you're excellent at that, and that's also why you're leading the series. So thank you, Sarah, for helping to draw out wisdom from others, and thank you for the wisdom you bring.
Thank you, Emily. I really appreciate that. And definitely, I'm known to be a question asker, not only
Keep doing it.
but many other spaces as well. I love to
Keep
learn,
doing it. Yeah, keep
seek to
doing it.
understand. So
Well, and you model it so well for so many others, so keep doing it.
thank you. Um,
Yeah.
I thank you so much for your time here
Thank
today. It
you,
was such a
Sarah.
privilege to reconnect and hear
Yeah.
aspects of your journey that many of us maybe haven't heard before. Thank you for sharing bravely and vulnerably. And I pray that many of us will be able to keep those different pieces of wisdom. I know I have the hand bag analogy glove that I will never really get out of my head. But truly, thank you so much for the way that you champion others so well and share. So bless
Thank you, Sarah.
you on the rest of your evening. It was such a privilege.
Same. Privilege, same. Yeah. Thank you so much, Sarah. I hope you feel better too.
Thank you.
Thanks.